Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this live stream broadcast. It's coming to you courtesy of Indylive Media. My name is Marlene Halliday, and I'm here today to introduce the first of our new series. The new series is called There Is No Planet B. We're hoping that the title of that is self-apparent, with the UN Blue Zone now up and running, more or less, down the road in the centre of Glasgow, and delegates for COP26 are arriving as we speak. You may have noticed, I certainly have, that there's a fairly commonly used phrase at the moment in the media, which is, "This may be our last chance. Are we going to take it?" So we're going to be talking about all of that today, but also with other interviews to come over the next couple of weeks. But today, I'm very pleased to say our guest is Robin McAlpine. Robin,
Hi.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on this. We've had you before, but it was in a different kind of studio, an actual studio.
Back in the days when you could get
back in the days.
Back in those days, you get donuts with your Indylive.
Oh, I know. Val used to be really good at bringing those donuts in, didn't she?
Yeah.
So, be really looking forward to talking to you about this. There's much more to talk about than we've got time for, but let's make a start on it. And I thought, we where we could start off is just talking about the kind of feelings that, well, you feel, myself, and other people about this whole situation that the world's in. And you listen to the TV or look around, and we see what's happening in the world, and the science of why it's happening is pretty straightforward. The science of what to do to reverse it is also pretty straightforward. The will to do that is the thing that is lacking so far, I think. We'll see if you agree with that. There's political will. There's also just individuals' will, whether you and I and other folk are willing to change our lifestyle a bit to help things out. And then there's what we all feel about it. And I go from the whole spectrum that I go along at. This morning, Michael Howard, the old former Tory Home Secretary, I think he was. He's on BBC, and he's sitting there in his armchair saying, well, I don't think we should be listening to what the young people are saying. It's not for them to decide what comes out of COP26. It's, we shouldn't be giving what they say too much weight, at which point I'm back to my usual yelling at the TV and, a load of irritation in me and exasperation with it. So there's all that at one end of the spectrum, and then in a different kind of way, I know I fall into a sort of grief and for what's going on and what's happening to the world about us and the other species on the planet, and indeed humanity itself. And I think grief's a kind of it's painful, but it's a kind of clear, clean kind of emotion. I mean, I think with grief you can move on and you can do something. Me shouting at the TV isn't really very good for anyone, including me. So where do you kind of come in?
If I was going to describe this, there was a thing that happened when I was a kid. So I'd been nagging my mum it was a summer holidays. I'd been nagging I was probably about 8 or 9. I've been nagging my mum for ages to let me make real lemonade. So she got me a big bag of lemons. And I can't remember how I did it all, but I had the instructions and the sugar and I put it in the liquidizer Now, I'd been arguing about this for ages, right? So I'd been really pushing to try and get me lemonade made, and I made it in the thing. And I was so chuffed with myself. And as I took it off to bring it over, a bit came loose at the bottom of the liquidizer, and my lemonade started pouring out. And I didn't have anything prepared to put it into, so I was dashing about trying to find it, and as I was dashing about trying to find a jug to put it into, it just kept leaking, and I was watching it go lower and lower, and I thought, is there going to be any left by the time I'm done? That's how I feel. I'm watching what's going on. I know it can be fixed. I know we need to fix it, and I'm watching TikTok, the time's passing, and it feels like the lemonade of our last chance of saving the planet is pouring out the bottom, and we're watching it happen. And if it's, you know what I was going to describe it as? Right now, it feels like 5 plumbers in a room with the water rising up to their waists because there's a leak in the pipe, and they're all saying to each other, someone should really do something about that pipe. To which I want to say, yeah, no, you're 5 plumbers. Get on with it now and do it. So I get that sense of, I think it's worse than grief. Grief. There's a comfort in grief. I feel despair.
Yeah.
I feel despair is what I feel. And I watch all of this happening. Just before we started, I was just writing a piece, and I'm trying to point out to people that if you think the climate change debate or the debate about what to do with it is being driven by climate scientists, you would be wrong. It's being driven by oil and gas. It's being driven by big electricity producers. It's being driven by equity investment funds. And they're all promising magical solutions and great ways. Every single time you hear air source heat pump, carbon capture and storage, or blue hydrogen, right? You're not talking to an environmentalist. You're talking to a corporate lobbyist, because those are not the solutions broadly the science would suggest we pursue. But that's what we're talking about. So what's happened here is, having spent decades trying to suppress the evidence in climate change, lobbyists like the big oil lobby have now decided, oh, well, it's too late for that. Let's subvert it. Let's turn it into another opportunity for us to mint a bit more money. So I feel despair. I sometimes feel resignation. And the worst of it is, right, so I'm getting on a bit now. That's this Christmas I shall turn, my birthday's 2 days after Christmas. This Christmas I shall turn 49. So I'm getting old. I reckon I've only maybe got another reliable 30 years. I don't know, something like that maybe. I'll survive it. Right, I'm almost certainly going to survive climate change. But, you know, when I'm sending my kids off to school this morning in their Halloween gear, I don't know if they're going to survive it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, if it was just me, I'd almost be giving up by now. I'd almost be saying, oh, well, fuck it. You know, I'm going to make it. I'm going to survive. Let's just enjoy ourselves on the road out. But I don't feel I can do that. And I feel that I've got to do something about it. But at the same time, I feel myself banging my head against the wall because, you know, all we did at Commonweal, all we did was spend a year trying to do some serious work on how you measuring the problem in Scotland and making a serious evidence-based assessment of how you fix it. But you know, we got our launch piece in the Herald, and then nobody's ever mentioned it again in the media. Oh, well, they do bits and pieces. Meanwhile, every second day, you've got Scottish Power telling you why air source heat pumps are great. Aye, because they shift the entire energy heating market to you, straight into your pockets. That's where it all goes. I mean, heat pumps only produce 3 times the. I mean, if they're working at a good, they only produce, and air source heat pumps only produce 3 times as much power as you put into it. So, you know, if you're getting 3 kilowatts of heating, you're paying 1 kilowatt in electricity, and that's even if you're not topping it up. So, so it's a degree of despair, and I'll tell you something else: quite a high degree of anger, because what really bothers me is the extent to which everyone in their dug is now wrapping themselves up in the language of concern. And I want to say, right, well, if you're that concerned, why are you not doing something? Because what we're doing, and I mean this at almost every level, the only people that I think have done anything are individuals. Some individuals. Well, people have made bigger changes to their lives than government. Government's just tweaking at the edges. I know people all over the place now, just ordinary people who are saying, you know something, I'm going to try those shampoo bars because there's no plastic in them. Or, you know, I'm just going to reuse this or try it again. Or, you know, I'm meeting, and what's really interesting is I'm bumping into people who, for anyone that doesn't know, I may be political and professionally, but I live in a small town. I keep a firewall between politics and my home life. So, you know, I don't. In my home life, we don't people through here, we don't spend our whole time talking politics by any manner of means. And what's really interesting to me is people who I would think would have shrugged cynically, say 5 years ago, and said, "Oh, it's just them hippie Greens," are now saying to me, "Oh, we need to do something. You know, I've done this or I've done that, or I'd really like to shift to an electric car if I could afford it." Or now that's progress. I mean, they've moved further than governments have so far. Not far enough, but then again, there's only so far you can move. There's not much you can actually do as an individual. It's not down to the individual. And so I feel this anger. Suddenly everybody's announcing, well, they're all announcing climate emergencies. And I want to grab them and pin them against the wall and say, what exactly do you mean by emergency? Do you mean declare it and then wait 30 years? Because that doesn't sound very emergency to me. And that's where we are. And
that's kind of where we are, isn't it?
Well, the one that causes me more despair than anything, the one that really, I find it hurts me, is when someone says net zero by 2050.
Yeah.
They take a quick breather to just translate into that what it means. What it means is we are going to keep making things worse and worse and worse for the next 30 years, but then we'll stop. That's what net zero by 2050 means. Net zero means we're still pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but somehow we're taking it back out at a similar rate or something like that. So what that means is once you hit net zero, that's you neutral. You're not making it better. You're just not making it worse anymore.
Exactly. You've just kind of cut down the acceleration. You've cut down that bit, but you're still at a far too high a level. Exactly. Yeah.
It's daft. It's crazy. And you've got people talking about all this. About that's even assuming that they're serious about it. 30 years. I mean, I've got to say, right. So, as this is being recorded, I am it's like Kevin Costner was a visionary because I am living in Waterworld here just now. We're up in the hill, but just down a wee bit from us, the road was absolutely flooded. And if I say that, I stay out in the bigger burn. It's the kind of burn that you can cross and not get your kilt wet. You know, it's no. This is not the Clyde, and bigger burn. There's a ford because there's a one of the places in Bigger to get to it. The easiest way to go is through this ford. Now this ford, I mean, it doesn't splash very high when you get through it. There's no water in it, and someone tried that yesterday, and their car got picked up in the current and washed 200 meters down Bigger Burn until it hit a pedestrian footbridge. Now, as far as I can see, I think everybody here is unified in their view that they've never seen it like this. I mean, we've had floods, of course, but I've never seen the extent of the flooding, and I've seen some bad floods up here.
Yes, and it's when something like that happens that you really realise the force that water has, isn't it? Like to sweep a car away.
I just do not think people understand water, right? So the definition of a ton is a square meter of water.
Yeah.
Right, a square meter, that's bugger all. So if you take something about the size of the cabinet underneath your work surface, a double cabinet underneath your surface, fill that with water, that's a ton. Water is, see, when you see it, it is utterly, when you see numbers calculated in this, one of the most amazing things in nature, but only if you know the numbers, is to watch a large wave out in the sea. The power that's contained in that is terrifyingly big. To move 1 ton for a mile. Think about how hard that would be. And that is 1 square meter of water. Think about a wave. So no, we are disrespectful of nature at our very, very great peril. And my God, we are disrespectful of nature, and we still are. And we need to wake up to this. And people are. But I kind of quite often do this as a rhetorical device. Do you believe in climate change? Everyone goes, oh, yeah. I says, do you? What have you done? Because if you believe in it, you should, by this point, be taking up arms and marching in the government. Because seriously, if you really believe in climate change, then what's happening and what we are doing shouldn't begin to be even nearly enough for you, and you should be petrified.
Yeah. You sound saying that, Robin. You sound pretty well in sync with what the Queen thinks as well when she said that the other day about people who get together and talk but they don't do anything.
That's just what everybody's saying now. That's if in my misery over this subject, among others, if in my misery over this subject there's something else that's cheered me up a little bit, it's that, and I'm talking about in Scotland, we're only talking about in the last few weeks, but finally a debate is breaking out in Scotland where over the last few weeks, people are actually saying, yeah, but where's the action? Now, I am so glad for that, because Scotland is deluding itself that we're leaders. In any sense that Scotland is leading, it's smoke and mirrors or luck. So targets don't count for anything. They're just things that you break later. The only reason that Scotland's got such a good performance on any matters environmental at all is because we're extremely lucky to have phenomenal amounts of land and crazy amounts of renewable energy resources.
Yeah. So and I mean that's the kind of reverse side of what you were saying about the power that's in a wave coming in out at sea or the swell out at sea. Actually, if you can harness that power, you're in a really, really fortunate position.
We've been trying to do something serious about marine energy for 25 years now. Now, I keep saying to people, you think about what's changed in 25 years. The internet. Think about the technological breakthroughs that have been made in the last 25, 30 years. And then ask yourself, and then think about the technological breakthroughs that have been made in Scotland over the years. We can all name them if you were born here. Right? Then think about the really very poor amounts of money we've invested in marine energy research. And think hard about the fact that in 25 years, we haven't got a commercial operating system anywhere. And you say to yourself, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we throwing money at garbage? So, for example, I mean, I'm just trying to think about this, but I'd like to go and have a look. I suspect there was a bigger subsidy given to that new St James's Centre development in Edinburgh than there's been to, marine energy in the last decade. I would need to double check, but if you go back and if you do a web search, because I did it the other day, if you do a web search for public investment in marine energy in Scotland, it's 10 million here and 10 million there. They gave 65 million to that shopping mall. So I have this awful sense that we are just sitting here talking about how great we are, living off the fact that you have to be mad not to put a wind turbine up in Scotland. I mean, really, it's free money. So we've put quite a lot of them up. We've generated quite a lot of energy. We pat ourselves in the back on the way home. And it's not good enough. It's not even nearly good enough. We need to wake up. We need to wake up.
Yeah. So, am I right? Yeah, I think you mentioned to me last week that Commonweal has observer status at COP26. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, tell us a bit about what that involves.
I don't really know. We just applied. It means we can go to the green zone, but no the blue zone. It's what it means.
Well, it's only no one's going to get into the blue zone.
I'm going to tell you a secret. We never made this public because we try very hard not to be petty or miserable in Commonweal. But see, on the day that the UK government announced that COP was coming to Glasgow, we booked the Science Centre. It was taken because we're fly, right? When you've got no money, you've got to be clever, right? So on that day, we said, they're coming to COP. We've done this before. They're coming to the SECC. Let's get the place across the road. So we had it all booked. And then it got taken off us because the Scottish government
came in. But then it got taken off them as well, didn't it?
There was I can't remember. I was so bitter when they took it off us. I stopped. It was like the ball had been. I feel like the wee kid in the class. They've nicked my sweets, and so they can all fight over it all they want. I don't care anymore. But we'd been at some of the planning meetings, and I've got to say that early on, as a kind of what can I say, as a sop to the fact that we just had our ball nicked off us, and I've got to say that it wasn't me that did it, it was another member of the team, but I've got to say we came away feeling a bit, I don't know about this, because it was coming across like a big energy expo, the purpose of it was big corporations selling, green gold rush stuff. And for those that, if you're not familiar with the phrase, one of the things that is kicking about a bit in theories at the moment is, in discussion at the moment, is this idea of a green gold rush, which is every chancellor with the technology is now out doing Silicon Valley IPO offers and their amazing new. So there's this idea that what you've got now is another .com boom, but with just endless numbers of green technologies. And I can't begin to tell you how wrong that is as an approach. It's not new technologies, it's old technologies which will save us. I'll probably come on to that. But so all I can say is that we applied to get observer status because one of the energy team thought it would be a good idea. So we did, we got it, and I've got my ticket. So I'm going for a nosy next week once I've worked out how the hell you get in. But I mean, that's it. The business is across the road, so across the river. So, I'll stick my head out and think, well, I hope they do something over there. But I've struggled to get massively excited about another expo.
Yeah, I had a look. Unfortunately, by the time I discovered that you could get tickets for the Green Zone, it was too late, and all the tickets, well, all the things that I looked at was interested in weren't available any longer. But I could imagine if you've got a free ticket to go in and wander around, you could end up talking to some, like-minded people, I think, presumably.
Unfortunately, that's one of the joys of Commonweal is I get to talk to like-minded people all the time, and all we do is we sit around in rooms saying, "What are these bastards doing?" So I don't, you just come across.
Wander around. You can wander around the Green Zone then and you'll probably find that they
it's like therapy.
Say the same thing.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like therapy. Frustrated people who actually believe that the rapid climate change action is necessary from all over the world can get together and share each other's pain. That is something that we can do.
Yeah, that's true actually. And I mean, for all that, there's a lot of talk around the media and from I was going to say Westminster, but not just Westminster. About is COP26 going to be a success, or it needs to be a success, and it got me wondering about what a success would actually look like. Because I know COP what was it, 21 back in 2015, the Paris one, when certainly there did seem to be an achievement. It seemed like there was an achievement at the time, and when I read the headlines, at least of it, it was about keeping to 1.5 degrees. I mean, back in 2021, I thought we're not going to keep to 1 point. We're probably on the way.
2000. I'm just remembering.
2015 it was
Paris.
It?
Aye.
Yeah. COP21. COP21. 2015. Stick to 1.5. Keep it to below 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial. I thought it's built in. It's going to be more than that already. These things.
Right. Here's my question. Right. So Paris, COP 21.
Yeah, that was it.
Right. Tip top. Where was COP 20? Where was COP 22?
Well, one of them was in Krakow in Poland. That was a subsequent one. Don't know where the previous one was.
Right. My point being, nobody can name COPs. Everyone can remember Rio COP. Nobody can name the next 15 or 20. Right. Then they can name the Paris one. Nobody can name any of them ones since. And now they're all talking about Glasgow. So the question is out of 26 COPs, there were 2 which have been really significant. Is Glasgow going to be the third of them? Don't get the impression that COPs meet regularly in the big breakthroughs. They don't.
No.
COPs meet annually and you get one big breakthrough a decade.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid, is there any sign that Glasgow's going to be one of them? And heartbreakingly, the answer's no, there's no sign. I mean, the Chinese aren't coming. Well, they are, but they're not properly. And Boris Johnson's drawn up that, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, the host nation is holding the jackets for the negotiations. So it's the host nation who is driving the negotiations forward. And that means that the success or otherwise of COP, it doesn't end with the Johnson administration, but it begins with them.
Yeah.
And it's facilitated by them. Now, they aren't really, I mean, I've got to say, they're not the world's worst government. And I know I'm not supposed to say this, but for climate change, they're not the world's worst government. They're much worse than the Boris Johnson administration. The recent announcement, I mean, I've got some major concerns with it, and chunks of it are kind of bollocks. But completely honest with you, given that the Scottish Government's plan has been described as being on the fringes of credibility, the UK Government's plan's no worse than Scotland's, really. So they're not the worst, but they're not how can I put it? They're not the serious-minded evangelical head-knocking together government that we need to get something out of COP26.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And then from there, you've got all the usual problems, which is China's economic development means it needs energy faster than it can produce, get its renewables in place. And Australia continues to be the dark heart of all evil on climate change. It's the country that scuppers all the agreements because its coal industries, they supply a lot of China's coal.
Yeah.
And all of these dynamics are still in play. European Union's a mess just now. They are not united in these issues. They're arguing over them. So who's driving it? One of the things I always say is political change doesn't happen. Political change is made to happen. So if you want to know, is it happening, you've got to point to somebody and say, not a person. You've got to point to something and say they're making it happen. Certainly not the free market. They're just trying to work out how to get hold of the green dollar.
Yeah, and make money.
It's not the UK government. It's not the European Union. Biden's been comparatively admirable on this, but I mean, he can't get his own party round this properly. Still niggling over whether it's going to be 3 trillion or 2 trillion or 1.5 trillion that they're actually going to spend on it. Like it's just a toss of a coin, but pick a number, we'll do that. But he's not coming here to drive this. And like I say, it's so important that we've the full buy-in of China if we're going to do anything. So I'm not hopeful, but then I gave up on this idea. I know this next thing I'm going to say is controversial, but I don't believe there's a global solution to climate change. I haven't believed that there's a global solution to climate change for a long time now. There are lots and lots of local solutions to climate change. So do you know how everyone says climate change is a global problem? Not the causes. The causes are lots and lots of specific local problems. So I tried to point this out. If you want to look at the impacts of climate change, they sweep round the globe. If you want to look at the causes of climate change, well, you can pinpoint them right down to an exhaust pipe or the roof of a house. They are
or a forest that's being burnt down.
A forest that's been burnt down, peat that's been dug up, and natural carbon sinks that are being dug up and removed. Electricity generating plants, remarkable amounts of the carbon come from remarkably small numbers of places. It's a local problem, not a global problem. It's it's about cleaning up. So it's kind of like saying, my street has a rat problem, and I say, no, every house in your street has a you need to put your rubbish out problem. That's what we've got here. Yes, there's rats, and yes, there are rats. I know I shouldn't be picking rats as an analogy. I suddenly realised, given the sensitivities around Glasgow just now, but I mean, this was a real example. I knew somebody who there was 2 or 3 houses that just in a place that just weren't looking after the back, and it was encouraging rats. And you kind of see this wasn't a matter of every member of the street had to get together for a neighbourhood summit at which they agreed a tax rise to disinhibit the appearance of rats. The 3 houses that were manky had to clean up their back gardens. We are the manky house. We need to clean up our back garden. It's not a global problem. It's a local problem, and we need to fix it locally. With a couple of exceptions.
So does that leave you feeling? Is that way of looking at it, which seems pretty good way of looking at it to me? Does that leave you feeling more optimistic that there is a way through?
Yes.
That there is.
Yes.
Yeah.